All right. Once again, we're reading from the Choices magazine, April 2020. And then if you flip it over and look, it is volume 35, number 7. Today I'm going to be reading 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10, and 11. And I'm going to be reading to you what we want you to know about ADHD. ADHD is really common. 1 out of 10 teens have it, but still widely misunderstood. Here, 3 teens tell you what life with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is really like. We are looking at Leandra Booker. She's 16. She's from Vancouver, Washington. Max Somers is 18. He's from Greenwood, Virginia. And we have Gusto Opstrich. He's 18 and he's from Decatur, Georgia. If you're reading this and you don't know or you don't have ADHD, you're probably not thinking about the bird chirping outside your window or the smell of pizza from the cafeteria or the way your socks feel on your feet or the new text notification that just popped up on your phone. That's because your brain automatically filters out most of the non-important information it receives so you can focus on one thing at a time. But if you do have ADHD, your brain thinks everything is important all the time. This article, but also the bird, the pizza, the socks, and the text. If that sounds overwhelming, it is. If I made a pie graph of all the things that I think about in a day and all the things most other people think about in a day, I'm pretty sure my pie graph would be a lot bigger, says Leandra Booker, who has ADHD. That's why it's so easy for kids like Leandra to get distracted. With all those thoughts competing for attention, it's hard for their brains to pick just one and stay with it. So what exactly is ADHD? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is a medical condition that affects the brain's ability to solve problems, pay attention, and practice self-control, explains Adiha Spinks Franklin, a pediatrician who specializes in ADHD. In a person with ADHD, the brain cells don't communicate the way they're supposed to, she says. Messages that help the brain complete tasks get interrupted. That's why it's hard for a person with ADHD to be able to complete a task like getting dressed in the morning, solving an equation, boiling an egg, or anything that has multiple steps. But just because someone has ADHD doesn't mean they can't focus long enough to accomplish anything. In fact, with help from things like therapy, medicine, and even phone apps, people with ADHD can do anything they choose. Here, 3 teens share what ADHD feels like for them, how they cope, and what they wish people without ADHD knew about this condition. So the first one we're going to look here is at Max. Max has the blue shirt on with the headphones, and he says, I want you to know I may be different, but I'm not weird. Throughout most of elementary school, I was bullied for having ADHD. My classmates would say things like, Max is so weird, it's his ADHD. It hurt to hear them call me annoying or to be left out of things because I wasn't trying to bother anyone. I just had really strong impulses, like to blurt out things that sounded rude or say weird stuff just to see the other person's reaction. I knew it was irritating, but I couldn't help myself. The urge to do it was overwhelming. The other thing that made it hard for me to make friends easily, like the majority of kids with ADHD, I have a learning disability. Mine is called dysgraphia, and it affects my handwriting and eye-hand coordination. Because of my dysgraphia, I never excelled at activities that require strong, fine motor skills. So a lot of traditional hobbies. Where you would make friends, like sports and video games with controllers, are a bad fit for me. Making friends hasn't been easy, but it's not impossible. I have found that other kids with ADHD actually make great friends. I have 3 friends with ADHD who are the most chill people ever. They like me for who I am and don't judge me. I also love playing Magic: The Gathering, which is a card game involving strategy and Dungeons and Dragons, which is a role-playing game. Both games have helped me find friends with and without ADHD. Having social support helps me cope with my ADHD, and so does taking medicine, which I do every day to manage my urges and impulsivity. Looking ahead, I really want to do something positive. I'm applying to college to be an engineer or a scientist. More than anything else, I want everyone to know that just because someone has ADHD, it doesn't mean they're weird. People with ADHD have legitimate challenges, but we have good intentions and are trying our best. Let's jump back to 9. And at the top, we're going to see uh, Leandra. She says, I want you to know I'm not a bad kid. Growing up, I got in a lot of trouble because I was always bouncing around. My teachers gave me behavior charts tracking whether I was good or bad for that day. I hated those charts. It made me feel like teachers thought I was choosing to be a problem kid. I struggled for years to try to follow the strict rules and structure that come with being in elementary and middle school. Now I know that was because I have ADHD. My brain moves a lot faster than I think most other people's brains do. I'll be thinking about one thing and then I'll start thinking about something else, which turns into 8 other things. And then before I know it, I'll be like, wait, what was I thinking about? In high school, everything changed for the better. My teachers are more flexible. They let me take a walk if I can't sit still. I also see a therapist, and working with her has helped me realize how important it is to have healthy outlets for my restlessness. I love to draw, write, and listen to music. I play volleyball. I take a nap after school to help me relax and recharge. And I have an app on my phone that's like a to-do list so that I can make sure I finish the other things I start. Not that I don't still struggle. I do. ADHD isn't easy, but I no longer let it get in the way of my confidence. I have great friends who like me, loud and funny. They don't want me to be any less me, and they appreciate me just the way I am. Let's now go to 10, and I'm going to go to the bottom. I want you to know I can focus intensely. I just need the right conditions. And this is the 18-year-old Gusto. The thing most people don't realize about kids with ADHD is that it's not that we can't learn, we just learn differently. For example, when I was in school where we had large classes and were expected to sit still for the whole time, I really struggled. I needed more attention than one teacher can give in a big class. I learned best by doing things, not just sitting there listening while the teacher lectures. Not being able to keep up in class has a ripple effect at home. There were nights when I'd stay up until 3 a.m. trying to make sense of assignments I hadn't gotten the hang of during the school day. My GPA fell to a 2.1. That was the most frustrating because I knew I wasn't dumb. But while I struggled in school, I felt like I could learn anything when I did it in a hands-on way. I taught myself how to play hockey by setting up a wall of cardboard boxes in the basement and blindly whacking at the puck until I figured out how to take a slap shot. 2 years later, I was on a team and scoring goals. I also taught myself to play lacrosse, and I'm teaching myself Korean and Spanish by watching online videos. I hope to become fluent in both. When my parents and teachers figured out that traditional school wasn't right for me, I switched to a school that has smaller classes and lets kids learn at their own pace. Now my GPA is a 3.4. It's not that things are perfect, but I'm in a place where my teachers can give me one-on-one help, and I feel comfortable asking for support when I need it. After high school, I want to go to college to major in marine biology. Once I get there, I'll make sure I take time to meet with my professors when I need extra support and find classes that include hands-on learning. I want other kids with ADHD to know that as hard as ADHD can feel, excuse me. Thank you. You are not your condition. ADHD is just one part of me, and I won't let it hold me back. Let's look at the top of 11, what ADHD is and isn't. Everyone feels distracted or has trouble focusing sometimes. That's not the same as having ADHD. ADHD is a neurological condition some people are born with that affects their brain's chemistry. It is genetic. If you have ADHD, a relative probably does too. ADHD is a condition that often requires accommodations like extra time for test taking. And it also is something that affects people of all races, genders, ages, and socioeconomic backgrounds. ADHD is not something people can get over if they just try harder to pay attention. It's not caused by eating too much sugar or playing too many video games. ADHD is not a scheme to cheat or get out of following rules at school. And lastly, ADHD is not something that only affects boys or teenagers. Girls and adults can have ADHD too. Let's go now to the bottom of 8, and there's a little yellow box and it says, what is ADHD? ADHD is a genetic disorder that affects the frontal lobe, so up here, which is the part of the brain that controls what's called executive functioning. You're using executive functioning when you make a plan with friends, you organize your homework, you get to school on time, if you can control your emotions, and if you keep track of your stuff. ADHD impairs the brain's ability to do all these things quickly or easily. That concludes my reading of what we want you to know about ADHD. You will have, once again, a double-sided worksheet. I would like you to take your time with it, answer it completely and correctly to the best of your ability. Have a wonderful day, and I will be there to read to you again. Goodbye.